I'm always curious to know, and I think a lot of our listeners are curious to know, when you're heading into a combat zone, like when you get to Kuwait and then you convoy up to Iraq, like what's
Yep.
going through your mind? What kind of emotions do you have? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Combination of the two? Like
Whew.
what are you thinking about,
Yeah,
man?
it's a combination of everything. It's a
Yeah.
ton of nerves. Even before we got off ship, I remember myself, like I just remember my extremities shaking, and I had to physically grab them and hold them down just because I was like, man, what is this going to be like? And
Yeah.
I think in part the emotions are so high just because the stakes are so high. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what my previous experience had been, whether it was working with explosives or shooting weapons or, high level of athletic engagement. It doesn't prepare you because the stakes aren't present, or at least they don't seem as present. And so it's just a mixture of emotions of, hopefulness that you'll kind of meet up to the expectations you have for yourself, that your crew will meet your expectations and that you'll meet theirs. I think fear. I think if you're not afraid of armed combat, then there's probably something wrong with you.
Something wrong with you for sure. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you guys don't want I would think you would be a little nervous about having Marines that have no fear, that want to go in there and kill as many people as they can. Like, that's not what you're looking for.
Yeah. And, I think even if you do get that, I think a lot of the times it's just bravado.
Sure.
I think it's a brave face, or maybe an attitude that's perpetuated by an environment or a culture that wants guys to be tough and macho. But I mean, the amazing thing about it is that about 50% of the Marine Corps is Lance Corporal or below, which means that most of these guys
really
are under the age of probably 23. Probably the majority of enlisted Marines are under the age of 24.
Wow.
And this is, again, just me ballparking. I don't know the actual statistics, but
yeah,
we're literally going over to other countries and affecting our will overseas with a bunch of teenagers and young 20-somethings. And that's really amazing if you think about it.
Yeah, that is amazing. And, in some ways, I think just from a psychological standpoint, once you get to be, in your mid-20s or your late 20s or even your early 30s, you start getting married, you have kids, you just can't think and do the same things you can do when you're 20 years old, right?
Sure.
Like when you're a 20-year-old athlete, Nick, and I know you know what this feels like, you feel like you can do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you feel indestructible, right?
Absolutely. I wish I still could.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I try to play basketball with my son now, and I'm like, man, I'll tell you what, the problem is my brain still tells me I can do things that my body can't do anymore.
That's right. That's right. I'm right there with you. I had a platoon of about 40 combat engineers with me, and I wasn't very senior to them as far as, years under my belt. I think I was 28 at the time that we actually deployed, but at the same time, the emotional and mental maturity level, because again, I don't think you can, it's a very difficult expectation to have of a 17 or 18-year-old for them to have an appropriate emotional and mental response to a situation that is really, I mean, armed combat is in conflict with, I think, what our natural inclination is as human beings. And to expect them to have even a healthy emotional response is a pretty big expectation. So I felt like that was a lot of my role as really the officer that was responsible for really working on behalf of these guys and helping them to realize, because again, I still had to struggle with squaring myself away with the reasons that we went to Iraq in the first place, but helping these guys realize, hey, what is the ideology behind why you're going? Can I help you in determining why it is that you're here and what makes you feel better about being here and being part of this unit and doing the missions that we're charged with doing? And ultimately, I think that was my primary job when I was overseas.